Now, a very noble and fine man is released from prison on Tuesday, a prison he should never have been in. I refer, of course, to the Honourable Craig Murray, the former British ambassador to Uzbekistan. That's right, a former British ambassador is currently in prison. He was imprisoned for telling the truth, and not even the whole truth, for he knew the whole truth and could have imparted it, but for the legal restrictions on him doing so. He didn't break the law, but he's been in prison. A man of such seniority and poor health has spent the last couple of months in a dungeon in Nicola Sturgeon's Scotland. One of a long line of people who have fallen foul of the government in Edinburgh. His crime was to be a supporter of the former nationalist First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, and to have stood up resolutely, as indeed I did myself, for Salmond's innocence. And when we were vindicated by a majority women jury who acquitted Salmond on every single count, that was not the end. And poor Craig was hunted down, prosecuted, and sent to prison. He comes out on Tuesday, I hope with his prison diaries in his satchel, which I hope will be a bestseller. And I extend now the invitation to him to join us next Sunday to talk about what must have been a searing experience for a man of his calibre to spend months in a Scottish Victorian dungeon. One of his stalwart supporters is Dr. Deepa Driver, who's also one of Julian Assange's stalwart supporters, as is the Honourable Craig Murray. Maybe the Julian Assange thing has more to do with what happened to the Honourable Craig Murray than we thought. Let's find out. Dr. Deepa Driver joins us now. Dr. Deepa, always a pleasure to see you. What news have you of Craig's release? When does he come out through the gates? Do you want people to go and greet him as he does? And what kind of health is he now in after what must have been a very grim experience?
Thanks, George. And thank you so much for constantly standing up for both Julian and Craig in all the forums that you're participating in. Craig will be out on Tuesday at 10 a.m. outside, and there is a protest, not a protest, a welcome party, so to speak, outside Saughton Prison in Edinburgh at 10 a.m.
Let me spell that for people, Doctor. It's Saughton. So please, if you can be there on Tuesday at 10 a.m. outside the prison gates to give a warm cheer to the Honourable Craig Murray, that would be terrific. Sorry, Doctor, please carry on.
No, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Craig is planning to give a speech when he comes out and share his experiences. He wrote to me a few weeks ago about the birthday event that we held for him online in his absence. And one of the things he says is that he's quite sure, having been in the prison, that the intention was to silence him. He's clearly been through a lot while in the prison. He says it is typical of British prisons, and that a number of people in the prison are, there are serial killers in there in the high security wing where he was based, and there are also a number of people largely suffering from addiction and deprivation. And typical of Craig, he's a very humane and kind man. He also has a good word for the prison staff there, who he says are coping with a very broken system. But one of the nicest things that he said was not only is, he knows he was put in there to make sure he was silenced and he was not around for Julian's extradition appeal hearings a few weeks ago. But although he was silenced temporarily, he's raring to go, and he's looking forward to being with friends and supporters.
And in fact, Doctor, his voice will be amplified by this foolish. I mean, it's not just that what the Scottish judges did was wicked. It was also extremely stupid, because Craig will exit the prison with bigger platforms, with a louder voice, and I hope a best-selling book in his satchel. How stupid is that?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think many people see him as a hero, as somebody who has stood up for what's right and been punished for using very, very spurious reasons. For those of your viewers who don't know, Craig was convicted of contempt of court. You would think that that was because he revealed some of the names of Alex Salmond's accusers, which is what was prohibited by the court. But that's not why he was imprisoned. He didn't reveal any names. In fact, he was caught on a very, very arcane ruling of jigsaw identification, suggesting that Craig provided some information which, if put together with pieces of information that may have been in the public domain, could have potentially identified someone. So it's not clear to him or to us whom he identified, and it's not been made clear how he identified them. In fact, the way in which the judgment is constructed, it criminalizes journalism. It makes a difference between bloggers and independent journalists and those who work for the mainstream media. And it suggests that the mainstream media is somehow to be held in greater reverence because they are of a higher standard.
I told you they were stupid.
Indeed. I'm always cautious about saying that about a judge, but it does seem very cruel and vindictive, especially given that Craig was told that he wasn't allowed to serve community service because his health was too poor. And yet, for the last 4 months, he has been confined in Saughton Prison.
His health was too poor to serve community service, but not so poor that he couldn't be thrown into a prison cell in a maximum security wing in a Victorian dungeon.
Indeed, and during COVID, when he has serious heart and other conditions. In fact, one of the nasty things they did about a week and a half ago was Craig had to go to the hospital for a medical appointment. And when he is a civil prisoner, what that means is he's not committed any criminal act. And just for your viewers, because criminal prisoners are let out on early release, Craig didn't benefit from that because the law in Scotland hasn't been correctly developed to allow civil prisoners to get the same benefits as criminal prisoners. Anyway, he's been in prison for 4 months, not got any of the benefits of being a civil prisoner. But then when he was supposed to go to the hospital, they strip searched him and they wanted to manacle him as he went into Edinburgh Hospital. And it's a very humiliating experience for a man who firstly, he has never tried to escape from prison. He has never jumped bail. He handed himself in. He's a civil prisoner. He's a non-violent prisoner. He's a peaceful man, a very highly intellectual man. And to find that he's treated in this absolutely despicable way to humiliate and degrade him and drag him through the streets of Edinburgh in manacles shows you how vindictive and cruel the system is. And this is certainly not the way Craig or indeed anybody else should be treated.
It's absolutely unspeakable. I did read that a British ambassador in prison on a civil matter who would have been given community service if he had not been in such poor health, I'm racking up the contradictions here, should be handcuffed to go to hospital it is beyond despicable, Doctor. It is maniacal. It is obscene. This latest chapter in the incarceration and persecution of the Honourable Craig Murray.
And, you know, one of the things that we have to take away from this is that Craig, Julian, Stephen Dunziger in the US, Daniel Hale, the drone whistleblower again in the US, David McBride, the Australian Defence Forces whistleblower who revealed serious criminality among Aussie forces in Iraq. All of these people are now in prison, imprisoned by the very criminals who are, you know, causing havoc in the world, spending huge amounts of money on military budgets. I heard you say earlier to one of your listeners about the fact that the problems lie with the people in charge and how they run our economy and how they spend our money. And most of the money is being spent on military expenses to kill, bomb, and destroy people in the poorest countries of the world, hiring young men and women from this country who are in very poor conditions themselves and training them to be killers to go and destroy somebody else who has done nothing to them. So it is important that we stand with people like Craig and Julian, who, as you know, has been in Belmarsh prison. One of the horrific things if I may, I'll share with your listeners is that Julian, while he was in prison, was apparently given an HIV test. Now, most of us who know about the accuracy of these tests know that they are highly accurate. The test came back saying it was positive. And then when Julian was retested separately, it turned out that he was negative. So the amount of psychological torture the state is putting these people through, which seems, you know, each one of these instances seem, oh, maybe it's a small mistake, maybe it's a problem, maybe there's an issue. But actually, when you look at the big picture and look at what's happening time and time and time again, you realize that there is an intense amount of torture, an intense amount of focus put on journalists and whistleblowers, independent people, by those who are the real criminals, and we must stand up to them now.
The criminals have made it a crime to report on the criminal acts that they have carried out. That's the long and the short of it. Dr. Deepa, if you are talking with the Honourable Craig Murray, please give him the show's very best regards. I appreciate you coming on the show.